friends, Cole here. Thank you so much for joining me today. And I wanted to, I just did a, I just did a yoga and recovery workshop here in Bali the other day. So I wanted to share little pieces of it with you. I'm going to sit up a little bit higher. I like to sit high on these blocks. Believe it or not, I kind of have tight hips, so it really helps me to sit up. So yoga and recovery, and I've shared several times that this is how recovery is how I got into yoga. I guess my addiction is how I got into yoga more so. And then slowly yoga helped me get into the recovery. Addiction, yoga, recovery, I think is how it went. And so in this workshop that I shared, let me see if I can condense it a little bit. I was talking a lot about samskaras, and I feel like that's something that I've shared here before, but I'll reopen the meanings to these words. So samskara is a habitual loop. It's a pattern, something that we do over and over again, so much that it's unconscious, that it's like a no thought. Yeah? So for example, a samskara, they can be positive, negative, neutral. When somebody sneezes, you'll probably say, bless you. Something that you've done so many times that it's habitual. Whenever you cross the street, hopefully you look both ways. Some of these things they're ingrained. It's a groove. Because it's happened so many times, it's made an indention. And actually it's happened making neural pathways in the brain. So it can be called like a neural pathway in the brain, samskara in yoga. And we play these out, and so often they are not so beneficial to us. So in terms of addiction, and this can be addiction from substance or addiction with substance, this could be negative self-talk, work, food, whatever it is, something happens and we reach, we respond, we react, and we do it without even thinking. We just do it. It's like a knee-jerk reaction that begins to get us in trouble whenever they have to do with addiction, things that we aren't consciously choosing, and that habit loop is so strong. So maybe you resonate with something in your life that is a samskara, something that is a habitual thing that you just do. I remember I couldn't not drink. Like I remember I'd be like, no, don't go into the liquor store as I'm like walking in. I would even be aware of what I'm doing. I'd walk out with a bottle, open it up, the whole time saying, no, don't do this. But I'd just done it so many times. It was like I was on autopilot. And really, really deep samskara for me. And so I think we're clear on what those are. So what do we do about it is first becoming aware. So awareness is so vital, getting really honest and asking, where in my life, where am I finding suffering? And often there'll be some samskara around that. Yeah. So another way that I can describe this is imagine there's like this one road that you've gone down so many times. It's a well-worn path. And you can imagine it like a super highway. Like you drive down, you have a solar car. You don't ever have to stop and fill it for gas. There's 24-hour maintenance. There's lights everywhere. You're the only person on the road. Everything is it's just a clear shot. Easy. Go. Boom. And then this other road, there's like a jungle, and there's beasts, and it's scary, and you are going to have to like have a machete to get through. Of course, this other path is more, it's easier. So it's whenever we begin to make a different decision, whenever we begin to cut loose of the samskara, to break free of the samskara, we have to begin to clear another path, and it is hard. It's very, very hard. We'll come back to this. So samskara. Shinpa. Shinpa is something that Pema Chodron talks a lot about. If you don't know Pema, then look her up. She's a sage woman. So Shinpa is like the hook. It's that feeling right before we react or respond, right before we go into a samskara, something that we always do. It's that moment where we're like, oh, the thought of like, oh, I need a cigarette, or oh, you pissed me off, I'm getting ready to scream at you. Whatever it is, right before we react, it's that feeling in the body, it's a tightening in the chest, it's a, oh, you can actually feel it. But it's that split second before we respond, before we react, before we do the thing that we always do. So what do you do if you don't do the thing you always do? You'd be going down this jungle path. So, samskara, shinpa. Shinpa happens, we go into the samskara, and then we're like, the samskara would be the thing that we've always do, but we have an option to go down the other path, to begin to create another way, a positive samskara, positive loop, but it's not going to feel like a loop. It's just going to feel confusing and awkward and weird. So we're just like staring at the jungle, figuring out how to navigate. So one more word that I'll introduce is called tapas. And I've talked about tapas a few times. I have an hour class out that I talk about it more in depth. But tapas is this attitude of change, this kind of like a willpower or a discipline. Discipline is not a word I like. It is a dedication to change. It is have a resolve to do something different, even though it is hard. And often it's symbolized and talked about as a heat as well. It's this transformative fire. So to go a different route, to do something different, it's hard. And you might feel that, that heat in the chest. I can really recall like deciding not to drink that day, or when I really, really wanted it and not drinking, everything in my body, it felt like red hot flames. And I was not doing it. And it's imagining like whenever you're shaping, like a blacksmith or something uses a very, very, very strong heat in order to shape and build whatever he's building, or her, or she. So it's using this heat, this challenge that's challenging, but you're using it to transform something, to alchemize something. So I need to do this with, like I normally do this with like a little drawing, with a little whiteboard. But I just want you to kind of get this visualization of shinpa. You get triggered. Oh my gosh, I have to do this thing. Like you're going to do this thing that you always do. But you want something different because you're ready to live in a different way. You're ready to do something different. So then you tap into this tapas, like it is going to be hard. But remembering that you can do hard things because what you've already been doing is hard. Yeah? So it's deciding to go down that overgrown jungle pathway and moving forward in that way. So that's my little soapbox. Those are just some things to kind of toss around in your mind. And some questions, some good inquiry questions are thinking about, where is it that the suffering is lying in your life? Where is it that it lives? What is it around? And can you identify some habitual patterns there? So often these involve other people, like whenever he does this, I do this, or it's, it's these triggers, it's these loops, these dynamics often. Often they're with ourselves. Often maybe there's an outside trigger, gets you into a shame spiral. I just start talking to myself negatively. But it's beginning to see the pattern. So maybe even trying to step back a little bit and looking like at a bird's eye view of like, where does this continue to happen? I continue to see this loop in my life, maybe over years and years. Maybe you can trace it back to something whenever you were a child that continues to replay itself. Self-inquiry is amazing, but do it gently. Do it kindly. So beginning to look there, and then looking right before that samskara hits, right before you do the thing you always do. What is that trigger? What is the hook? What happens right before that? Because that's the moment that you want to remember. That's the moment where you have the opportunity to do something different. Yeah. And then in your case, what does the tapas look like? What does it look like to use some will, use some force, some resolution to change? So tapas sometimes looks to people like, let's put it into a yoga practice. Into a yoga practice, let's say that I always am really lethargic. I'm kind of tend to be more really slow movement, really chill, really this kind of a low energy, which is completely fine. But if you're wanting to shift, if I'm wanting to do something different, my tapas would be to push myself to my edge, to go farther even though it's hard, to stay a few seconds longer, and you will feel that fire of building a new pathway. And let's say that you're the opposite. And what is in my case, I was always wanting to go to that edge. I was always doing that, always doing that. But often what I needed was to just chill. I needed to slow down. I needed to relax, to have some more yin energy. So in this case, my tapas would be to be still. And that was hard for me. It was hard for me to be still because then the mind is going. But so that is my tapa. So it looks different. It looks unique all the time. It's not always a push forward. Sometimes it's a pull back. Sometimes the most productive thing we can do is nothing. Or it's actually not nothing, but to stay, to be still. So something else to think about. And let's do a short meditation here. Just feeling in, checking in, close the eyes down. Tracing the breath in and out of the body. Letting the inhale fill up the front of the body, the belly, the chest, and exhale out. Inhaling the side ribs and exhale out. And inhaling the back body, kidney area, and exhale out. So identifying a few places, maybe you have already, maybe you haven't, but identifying a few places in your life where you have found some habituation, some patterns that are not serving you, and just bringing awareness to that. So at this point, we have a tendency to judge ourselves or to blame ourselves or maybe to blame other people, like, look what you've made me do, or look what this habituation has caused me. But it's interesting where we go with it. So watch the mind. Blaming yourself, blaming others, shaming yourself. We're just noticing, we're just seeing it, because this awareness is the first step to change. These samskaras are unconscious. So we have to bring the unconscious up by really stepping back and looking in. So often these are really hard to see. Often we can see them in other people, but challenging in ourselves. So be patient. We notice, we look, we feel. And take a moment to really tap into that pain that it brings as well. Just to be really clear on, like, this is not really what I'm wanting. So we use that, often whenever I'm teaching, I talk about using the downward energy to create upward energy. You push down in order to lift up. You use this root, this deepening in order to lift. So both of these energies are good. So we really can get clarity by finding our contrast. So we can get clear here on like, this is not working. And using that energy to make change, using that energy to alchemize. It's like an impetus for change. But first we sit with, often you hear people talk about let it go, let it go, let it go. And honestly, in my perspective, we can't really let things go. Our experiences are our experiences. But we can let them be. We cannot shove them away, not deny them, or not just be unconscious of them. We can bring them up and let them be seen, and then we can navigate around. So that's where we're at right now. We're seeing how we can navigate around. And then what will it look like? What do you feel maybe needed in an attitude of tapas? What is going to allow some shift? What is going to allow a new pathway to happen? And what would that even look like? Maybe you have some answers clear. This might be a thinker for a while. But we're empowering ourselves, knowing that we can see where we are and then how we can move forward. Continuing to trace the breath in and out. Some small things that we can do just to feel this kind of the heat of the tapas is maybe extend your meditation practice by just a few minutes, or extend your yoga practice by a little bit, or something in your life that feels nourishing a little bit longer, just a little bit more, just to kind of this push. And not that it's always more, maybe it's less, but something that is not what you normally do. Doing something different, even taking a new route to work, going to a brand new grocery store, whatever it is, just starting to do things that are different, breaking up the habitual patterning, starting to feel that, because little things might come up. Like, this isn't the way I normally do it, but we don't want to always do things that way. So even though it might seem senseless, like, okay, I'll go to a new store, whatever, it's just putting that openness to change in the body. Just switching things up, getting used to switching things up. These are deep grooves. Water flows in the path of least resistance. This happens so many times. It can be challenging to move in a new way. So we just begin to light that up in different areas of our lives. A couple more rounds of breath. And slowly open your eyes. Thank you. I hope that you gleaned something out of this, that something about this resonated. This self-inquiry has been such a vital part of my recovery and my process. And I've been really loving to share it. Some potent questions. And when we can get honest with ourselves about the answers, some really beautiful stuff can come up. So let me know if you have any comments or questions about this. I would love to hear what you thought. And yeah, thank you so much. Peace.